December 18th, 2022, World Cup final. You talk about the power, the emotional power of sports, right? My family and I were sitting and watching the World Cup final, and we had the extent to which we were emotionally vested in Messi winning the World Cup can only demonstrate the beauty of sports, right? Because here's a guy that, right, we've never met him.
Right.
We're not Argentinian. Right. He doesn't know that we're alive.
Right.
And yet it's life and death for us that he should. I mean, it was so harrowing. I don't know if you watched the game, that at one point my son, who's 11 years old, said, I can't watch this anymore. I'm going to have a heart attack. That's the power of sports, that it can pull us in and it can make us truly tribal. And in my case, before you interject, it was kind of driven, my desire for him to win was driven by really a purity strand. It was that it seemed cosmically unjust for the greatest soccer player of all time to not have won the World Cup. So when he won it, to me, it seemed like the world is right. Beauty has won.
I get it.
Look at
That's
this guy.
awesome.
And I should add, what a guy, right? Humble, sweet, family man.
What's fascinating to me is, as happy as they are, the people on the other team that were rooting for the team, they're devastated right now.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing about sports.
Yeah,
you can get so attached to what's happening that a loss is like really a loss.
Yeah.
Can't believe we fucking lost to Kansas City.
Well, in my first book ever, 2007, Evolutionary Basic Consumption, I talk about studies, not my studies, I was citing other works, that looked at what happens to the testosterone levels of fans as a function of whether their team wins or loses. Of course,
how do you test that?
Well, it's been tested. You just take salivary assays of fans as their team is winning or losing.
You can get the testosterone levels from that?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so
Wow.
now what? It's not surprising, as you would know as a fighter, that if you and I fight and you defeat me, your testosterone level goes up, my testosterone level goes down.
Like a video game.
Like a video game. Except what's happening here is that there is a vicarious endocrinological response. The fans are having the same increases in their testosterone levels or decreases as a function of their team winning or not. That's quite extraordinary. And that shows you why we become so bonded to our favorite players and so on. We are really going through this battle with them.
Yeah, it's really the case with fighters. When people have a fighter that they're really a giant fan of and that person gets beaten in a devastating manner, it's so heartbreaking.
There's even studies, by the way, that have looked at what happens to sexual behavior of fans after their team wins or loses. So if let's say if your wife is upset that you haven't been producing in the bedroom, she should pray that the husband's favorite team wins, because if he wins, he has an increase in testosterone level, increases their libidinal drive, and so we're animals.
It's just attaching so much of your own emotions to something completely out of control and just rooting on it.
Exactly. But do you have a fan in any sport where you've ever been that vested in?
Well, there was one time, I remember when I was a kid, I was a giant fan of Donald Curry. Donald Curry was the welterweight boxing champion at the time. And he had a rivalry with this other guy, Milt McCrory. And Donald Curry knocked him out. He became like my favorite boxer. And then Donald Curry, he got beat by this guy, Lloyd Hunnigan. It was a devastating loss. Like, people couldn't believe Lloyd Hunnigan beat Donald Curry. And it was like Donald Curry might be on the downslide, but I was still like a giant fan of his. And then Donald Curry fought Mike McCallum. And Mike McCallum hit him with a left hook to the body and a left hook to the chin and put him out. Like out cold, and I couldn't believe it. And I ran. Here it is right here. I ran out of the house. Watch this. Boom.
So the
out cold.
The one with the black shorts is your guy, right?
The guy down is my guy.
Okay.
So I misremembered it. It wasn't a left hook to the body. It was like he goes with a right hand and then a left hook behind it. But he KO'd Donald Curry, and I couldn't believe it. And so I put on my running shoes. I couldn't stay home. I just couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with it. Wow. And I went running in the snow. and I ran. Man, no, when wasn't in the snow. I'm thinking of another story. There's another time when someone lost. I went running in the snow. I don't think it was in the snow. I think it was warm. I don't remember, but I remember I went running. And as I'm running, and I'm running down the road, I'm thinking to myself, I am never going to be this invested in someone else winning or losing ever again.
Right.
I was so devastated that he lost.
What was the
believe it.
bond? Why
His
did you?
technique. His
Okay.
technique was perfect. He was crisp. Like, he was coiled. They called him his what was his nickname? Something Cobra.
Here comes Jamie.
I forget what his nickname was. But his technique was so crisp.
Lone Star Cobra.
Lone Star Cobra.
There you go.
He was out of Fort Worth. And his technique was so sharp. I always admired guys who were able to find like the shortest path to connecting with a shot.
Yeah,
Where it's
yeah.
just like the technique is so dialed in.
Yeah.
You know, there's guys that like Gervonta Davis is like that. Their technique's so dialed in that when you watch them uncork, it's like, oh my God, the efficiency of it. And so I was just a giant fan of the guy. I just loved, as a person who like really enjoyed technique, I like watching someone who's exceptional at it.
I recently maybe a few months ago, I put out a sort of a hypothetical what if scenario where I think this was on Twitter, where I asked, people who follow me, would I be able to step on an NFL field and under any circumstance simply get a single yard as a running back? Right? So in other words,
Right.
So now, for example, if I go into a boxing ring with someone, the only way I'm going to survive is if I keep running around long enough, because the singular time that they hit me, I'm unlikely to be able to withstand that.
Right.
So I'm gone, right? If I play basketball, I think I have enough skills that I can receive the ball and pass it off to someone, right? And so then I started thinking, what about other sports? Could the average person who doesn't play that sport survive long enough to do something? I'm obviously not going to get 100 yards, but a single yard. What are your thoughts? So I thought, maybe I was being presumptuous, maybe now I'm an old guy, but I thought that it could be possible for the front line to make enough of a hole for me to run through for 1 yard, and I would just draw. I just need to get a single yard.
Yeah, it's possible.
But a lot of people thought there's no chance that would happen because they would catch you in the backfield, they would tackle you, and then you would die.
Well, they probably could do that too. That could happen as well. But if the defense is so strong that they can just create a small enough opening for you to go 1 yard, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
It would suck for you though, dude.